When you go to the gym and you train your muscles, over time you're going to build strength, you're going to build muscle mass. But if you, after spending a lot of time training, you then stop training entirely, you're going to lose those gains. And you're going to lose the muscle mass, you're going to lose the muscle mass, you're going to lose the strength that you had. This is the principle of time under tension. This is a thing that's talked about in personal training for muscles, but this is exactly how every other skill in life works. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Muscles are very good, and the gym is a very good analogy as to how to apply things in life. This is how you build skills in life that actually last long with you in your life is time under tension. Spending time actually doing the thing. But the time you spend away from the thing, you then lose that skill. Just as spending time away from training the muscles, you will lose the muscle mass. And it's an interesting concept. It's a thing that I've been thinking a lot about recently because I'm obviously in this episode, I'm going to talk about the personal things that I'm thinking about when it comes to this topic. And that's why it's on my mind right now. But the truth is, if you're going to build a skill, you need to spend time actually practicing that skill. Like reading books and watching podcasts and listening to theory will only get you so far. It is actually doing the thing and actually getting skin in the game and actually go in and get your hands dirty with the skill, with the thing you want to do. That's actually going to teach you these lessons that will help you throughout your life. So even if you're here listening to this podcast, you actually have to go and do something about it. You can't just sit here listen to this podcast and then okay, yes, you're great at sales, right? Oh yes, you're great at training in the gym, right? You're great at athletics, right? No, you actually have to go and you actually have to do it, right? You actually go and do the damn thing. That's how you build that skill. So, a good example for me in my life, the biggest example, I talk about sales, right? I used to do door-to-door sales, and in my most recent job as well, there was also a big sales component. When I was there, I did well. I was very good at handling the rejection. I was kind of in a good mindset. I was very good at making the sales. I definitely made a lot of money from sales commissions. In the door-to-door job, I made a lot of money. I was only there for a month, but I made a very good amount of money considering how little I worked. And in the most recent job I had, was there for a little bit longer, but and the commissions weren't as big, but I still made a solid chunk of money that kind of kept coming in even after I quit because with sales commissions usually it's like a 2 week delay. That's like a little insider information. Usually there's a 2 week delay after you make the sale versus when you actually get the commission into your bank account. So I got that, and it was like, okay, yes, I was good. But I feel like now, in comparison to when I was actually in the moment, my sales skills are way worse right now in comparison to when I'm actually there in the moment. Because even with my most recent job at the gym, I had to relearn some things. Like there were concepts that I learned in door-to-door sales that really, even if I knew it in my head, I forgot how to actually implement it because I wasn't in the game. And getting back in the game, I kind of got those pathways moving again. And now that I've spent time out of it again, I think I'm back to just I'm not good at sales right now because I've not been training it. But when I actually train it, I'll be good at it because when I was in the moment, I knew I was actually pretty good at that stuff, right? Sales and being like a salesman isn't really the thing I want to do with my life, but it is still something important because sales is life and everything you do in life has a sales aspect to it. So it's of course important to have at least basic sales skills that you can actually practice and implement every day. So that's the biggest example that I have in my life that I've been thinking about that hopefully can give you some kind of an analogy as to everything else that you might do, right? You play piano. If you're trying to learn to play piano, first you have to learn the notes and you have to learn where they are and you're improving your hand-eye coordination. Then you're able to start playing some songs. You train playing the piano every day for like a few weeks, maybe a couple months. You'll start to learn how to play and you'll end up knowing how to play. But then if you stop playing entirely for a few weeks, you're going to come back to it and you're going to be a little off. It's not going to be the same. You're going to make more mistakes. Your hand-eye coordination is not going to be as good. And even if you remember how you played and how good you were before, just spending time not training that thing, that part of your mind, you will forget it and you'll have to relearn it. The beautiful thing about this concept is it's the same as your muscles. It's like you can train your muscles. You start at a state, you train your muscles, you grow in strength, you grow in muscle mass, and then you stop for a while, and your muscles will dilute a bit. But usually, if you were to go back to training, you will gain those gains a little bit quicker because your muscles saved a little bit of that of those strength of those tears. Because when you build your muscle, you're tearing the muscle fibers, and then they're building themselves back up, and slowly over time you get stronger because of it. Your muscles will still remember, at least for a good amount. Like you will gain and you'll get back. Like let's say you start really skinny, you train for a few months, you gain maybe 5 pounds of muscle mass. It's like a decently noticeable difference. And then you just go like a few months without training, you go back to being skinny. But then you go back to training, it'll take maybe 2 months instead of 3 months to get back up to where you were before. Right? It'll be way quicker, right? So your muscles kind of have that memory of being bigger, and those fibers, those nerves in your muscles remember the tension that you put them under. So even if you spend time away, it would take like maybe you spend a whole year, maybe more, away from training at all of any kind. Before your muscles will actually go back, it'll take longer to actually build it up. So the thing I'm trying to say, it's been that I haven't really explained it that well. It's like you do something, then you spend time away from it. If you go back to doing that thing, you will build those skills up. You will build that memory up faster than the previous time, than when you were learning it for the first time, than when you were training your muscles for the first time. It is exactly like training a muscle when you're learning a new skill. You have to have some time under tension, and the more time under tension you have, the more you will grow in that aspect. But you move away from it, you'll kind of forget it. But then if you come back to it, you'll maybe be able to regain those skills a little bit quicker. Unless you go a very long time without doing it, then you'll probably have to start from scratch. It's the same with the muscles. It's the same with every single skill, right? So that's why I say, like right now, in this exact moment, I'm not really good at sales. If I was just thrown into a position right now, it would take a little while for me to get up to speed again. I wouldn't just be able to go and just kill it. No, absolutely not. And even when it comes to football, right? If you don't know who I am, I'm a football player, right? Like soccer, like where depending on where you're watching this from, real football. I tried to make it pro. I went to Europe and I was playing, trying to make it pro. Now where I'm at right now is not the same level I was at a year ago. It's not the same level I was at 2 years ago when it comes to just the effort I'm putting in, when it comes to the talent I have on the pitch. It's just not the same because I'm still playing probably like about once a week. I'm still training cardio, and I'm definitely going to be ramping up that training in the coming weeks for sure. But you still compare it to back then, it's just not the same. Because, of course, I've spent time away from it, right? I'm not training 3 times a week with the game. And then maybe, like, I'm not training with the ball at my feet like 5 times a week anymore. I'm not doing it, right? Just because I'm not in that environment anymore. I'm not on a team right now, so I'm not in that environment. So, of course, it's just not the same. It's not the same level of competence than it was a year ago. I think I'm still good. I think I'm still fine. I still play well. But there are a couple of aspects that maybe need to be just smoothened out a little bit because I've just kind of dropped the level of training because I'm not particularly going for that thing anymore. But that's kind of another big example that I have in my life where it's like, yeah, like I'm still good. I'm still good, but it's not where it was. And that's the case with absolutely everything in life. You're naive and you're arrogant if you think that, oh yes, you were in sales for 2 years and you spent like another 2 years out of sales, and you're still at that same level when you were killing it, when you were crushing it in your old company 2 years ago. The answer is no. You're just not, because that's how your brain works, and you have to callous your mind, like little David Goggins reference. But truly, putting yourself in those situations, and consistency is the most important when it comes to it. You don't want to be on and off, then you'll never grow, you'll never actually build that skill. Being consistent with it, preferably a daily thing, right? You work out in the gym every day. You should at least maybe have at most one rest day a week, but you should work out every single day. You train those skills every day. You'll play piano every day. You'll play that instrument every day. You'll get a ball at your feet every day. That is how you will train those skills. It's about consistency. Consistency is the most important. But the principle of time under tension is important, because when you don't have that tension, you're gonna come back to that thing and you're not gonna be at the same level. And you need to remember that. You need to understand that. You don't want to be arrogant. You don't want to think that you're still at the same level, because your mind works like that. Spending time away from it, your mind will slowly forget about those skills, and about, especially if it's like a physical thing, the motor skills that you need, or the mental skills that you need, the stress that you were put under in order to get to that level of competence. So you spend time away from it, maybe it will be a little bit easier to get back to it when you get back into it. But if you spend a lot of time away from something, your skill level will be lower, and it won't be as good and as competent as you were when you were in that moment. So that's why I gave the example of playing a musical instrument, or playing a sport, or of course working out in the gym, and sales skills, of course. Those, as well as any other skill you're trying to build, spending time away from it will kind of lose your level. You will lose that level of skill and level of competence that you will have to build back up. And that's okay. That's okay. There's some skills that maybe you don't want to have. There are some skills that in life you don't want to have. There are some habits, some patterns of behavior that you recognize in yourself that you don't want to have. And this is maybe the reverse idea of time under tension. It's time away from tension. When there are behaviors, when there are patterns, when there are things that you don't want to have but you fall into because it's bad habits. So like, you can think of addictive behaviors, right? You can think of alcohol, you can think of drugs, you can think of just scrolling, you can think of playing too many video games, you can think of staying up late at night, you can think of watching porn, you can think of just lust in general, you can think of all of these things, addictive behaviors that don't help you in any way. Time away from tension is the reverse concept of time under tension. You don't want to be doing these things. You know they are bad for you in the long run. And they are not things that you want to be occupying your brain space with. You want to be occupying your brain space with actually real, meaningful skills that will help you in life. Those things are not helpful in any way. So you need time away from tension. You need to not do that thing for a long period of time to get to the point where you're now fully weaned off of it, that you're no longer addicted to it, that you can now move forward in life. And that's going to be hard, right? It's going to be difficult because your brain, because you've facilitated something, you've unlocked some level of dopamine that your brain's gotten addicted to, or your brain is just in bad habits and bad patterns and in all sorts of sin, that it's going to be hard. You're going to feel the temptation. You're going to feel like you want to do that thing again, whatever pattern of addictive behavior you're in. But you need time away from tension, time away from the stimulation for your brain to get used to the new state. And for your brain to get used to the new thoughts, the new ideas, preferably the higher quality of thought and the higher quality of stuff you consume and higher quality of skills that you're building. So time away from tension, you will slowly wean yourself off of those addictive behaviors and those bad patterns that you see in yourself. That's the reverse concept. You have time under tension, which is to build skills, to build things that will help you in life. And if you're away from that tension, you will lose those skills and you will lose that competency and you will lose the coordination. And that's okay because you're not doing the thing. The ultimate thing is you have to actually be doing the thing. And then you have time away from tension, which is you having behaviors and patterns and things that you don't like, that you want to move away from. You need to spend time not doing that thing and not even thinking about those things. And over time, you will wean yourself off of it. But if you, let's say you're addicted to drugs, let's say, like you smoke weed, let's say, and you don't like how you've been, you don't like the person you've become because of your addiction. So you're trying to wean off of it. And you manage to get a few months away from doing it. And you start to think that you have some momentum, right? And then one kind of slip happens where your friend gives you the weed and you smoke it and then you unlock the pathways of it again, you get addicted again. And then you fall back into it. You relapse. Many addictions have that type of a thing happen. You're getting some momentum, you're getting some escape velocity, you're weaning yourself off of those patterns. And then one thing happens, you fall back into it. And you literally fall back, and maybe it's actually worse than it was when you started. It's the same type of thing. Just as if you're developing a skill, a good skill that you want to have in life, like a sales skill, like a communication skill, leadership skills, you're in there. You're in an environment where you can build those skills. And then you go away from that environment, you're going to lose that skill, but then you're going to get back into that environment and you're going to build those skills again. Similarly with the addictive patterns, you're in that addictive pattern, you're moving away from that addictive pattern, and then one thing happens, you're back in that addictive pattern, it'll just kind of exponentially grow again, and your brain will kind of put you back to where you were. In a sense, it is way harder to get off of an addiction, to do that time away from tension, than it is to do time under tension. Because yes, with addictive behaviors, it's like it takes one thing. You can go months or even years away from that behavior, but it takes that one moment of slipping off and falling away from it, and just coming short, to open up those pathways again, and just that addiction then just is back in your life again, because it's harder to get through that addiction than it is to build a skill. Because you can build skills like relatively easily. Like, yes, you need to work hard. You need to have time under tension. What tension means is you're doing something you don't want to do at times. You're doing things you don't like. You're having to go through harsh criticisms and feedbacks, maybe from other people or maybe just from your environment. But if you want to actually do well in your life and you want to build skills that are actually going to help you in your life, of course, sales skills being probably one of the most important, then you have to go through that tension. And the word tension is exactly that. It's tension. You don't like to do it. When you're in the gym, of course, the muscles and building muscle is the best analogy for it. When you're in the gym, you want to go till failure. You want to go until you actually feel pain in your muscles. Otherwise, you're not really working anything. You're not going to gain anything, because you're not actually tearing the muscles enough to where you're actually going to gain muscle mass and strength by training. You want to train until you actually feel the pain in the muscles. Similarly, with any other skill that you build, you want to actually be in that environment and do that thing, and it's going to be hard and it's going to be difficult, and you're not really going to like it at times. But then on the other side of it is you've built a skill which is super good and beneficial for your life, but you need to keep training it, right? You stop training it, you'll lose it. And yes, it might be easier to build it back, but you will still have to kind of relive that time under tension. Whereas with addictive behaviors, with time away from tension, with kind of weaning yourself off of something that's not beneficial for you, it kind of, for your brain, it's way easier to fall back into it than it is to stay away from it. So you need to be careful, but you need to understand that not everything's gonna come easy, right? There are some people, and there's 1 in a million, 1 in a billion, right? Okay, 1 in a billion is a bit much. Like 1 in every 10 million people have that gift. They have that talent, right? The football example. You have the Lionel Messi. I bet you if Messi left the sport of football for like a couple of years and came back to it, he would kind of just be as good. Like he would just go back to running games and just being the best, right? Because he had that natural God-given talent. But not everyone has that. Most people don't have that. Most people will need an adjustment period if you spend that time away from something. But there are some people that, yes, you may have that talent and you literally just have that. In personal training, this is a concept, it's called biomotor ability, when you have a physical talent that just comes naturally, that you don't train, that you've never trained before, but you just have it. You just have that physical talent and you have that ability. That's called a biomotor ability because it's just something you got from birth. You didn't train it. But most people, they've trained their talent. Me, I've trained my talent. And if you spend time away from it, you will lose it. And that's just how it works. That's just how the brain's pathways work. And it sucks because, again, we're all up against it, right? As I said, like to get away from a bad pattern and to have time away from tension, it's harder than to go under tension. But I think it's still difficult things regardless, because there's always that level of difficulty that you will have to overcome to get to the point where you develop that skill, or to get to that point where you move away from that addictive pattern and behavior. So time under tension, man, it's such an important thing. And like the thing I'm trying to really hone, and the point I'm really trying to drive home, is the fact that away from that tension, you will lose the skill. But if you want to build the skills for life, you have to constantly be in those environments. And that is how the brain works, and it sucks. I wish you could just spend a few months doing sales and then you're a good salesman for the rest of your life, but it's not how it works. You have to actually be in those environments to keep callousing your mind and building up that muscle, right? Like a muscle, you have to build it up, right? Like a muscle, it's going to take time to build it up, and you have to put it under tension, but you will grow if you continue to do the thing, if you continue to be in that environment. But also, like a muscle, spending time away from it, you will lose a lot of those gains. You will lose a lot of those skills, a lot of those pathways in your brain. So that's really the main point that I'm trying to talk about. And kind of the final thing, of course, the most important thing, is your relationship with God, your faith. Faith is also a time under tension thing, where if you're praying to God, if you're going to church, if you're reading the Bible every day, you're growing in faith, and you're building that part of your mind. You're callousing that part of your mind to get used to your relationship with God. But if you stop reading the Bible, you'll forget what you read. If you stop praying, you'll forget just how beautiful a prayer can be. You'll forget about important feelings like gratitude and like repentance, right? And unselfish things, right? You will maybe more into not so good feelings, right? And you will lose a lot of faith, and you will lose a lot of belief if you spend time away from those daily biblical religious practices, building that relationship with God. If you spend time away from those practices, you're going to kind of lose it. But if you lean even further into it, you're only going to grow in faith. For me, where I'm at in faith, I think I really need to grow in faith. I absolutely do. I read the Bible every day, but maybe I need to read it a bit more. Like, I maybe don't read it as much as I ought to. And I pray every night and every morning, but maybe I need to think about God more throughout my days. I definitely need to spend more time with people of faith, rather than just kind of being on my own and just grinding my teeth and getting through it. Because I know that doing those things is more time under tension. It involves this principle, and you're building a relationship with God, and my faith will only grow stronger and stronger by doing that. But right now, I'm not really there. Like, I'm not really there yet, and I'm still working on it. But yes, I really do want to grow the faith. But it can be applied to that, and it can be applied to anything else. But really, that part of the concept is another, maybe like the final idea, that it's like there's levels to it. There's levels of training that you have. You can have a level of skill, but if you want to get to a new level of skill, there's going to be new time under tension. There are going to be new inputs. There's going to be new things that are difficult to deal with. Like, you can be a good salesman. Let's say, to bring it back to sales, right? You can be maybe a top 10 salesman in your company, but you want to be in the top 5, or you want to be in the top 3. You have the ambitions to get there. Well, then you have to look at those guys and see what they're doing different from you. And more often than not, they're going to be doing something different than you. They're doing more, right? They're seeing more clients. They're doing more volume. They have a tactic or a technique or a phrase they say, or they know how to recognize pain points. Those types of things. They're very persuasive in their nature. And then those are things that you will have to build as well. And there's a new level of time under tension that you're going to get to if you want to have that. If you want to get there, if you have that ambition to get there, if you want that, you have that new time under tension. So there's that level where it's like you can have a skill and you've gone through that first phase of going through the tension and going through the difficulty, and you've developed the skill, and you're still in the environment where you're building the skill and you're working on the skill every day, and that's great, and you're in a good moment, and it's going to help you in your life. Beautiful. But there's still another level, and it's like you can still look at someone else and say, oh, I want to get there. You have that ambition to get there. So that means there's a different level of tension. I've related it to faith because that's the biggest example that I can give. That's like you're praying, you're reading the Bible 10 minutes, and you're going to church. That's one level of faith. The next level of faith is you're praying multiple times a day, you're reading the Bible for half an hour a day, and you're thinking about God. Maybe you're watching content on YouTube that's talking about God, let's say. Then the other level is you're praying multiple times a day, you're reading the Bible multiple times a day, and you're spending time with actual people of faith that are helping you grow as you're helping them grow. And that's an even higher level. And you're always having God on your mind and on your heart when you're making any decision in life. Rather than focusing on emotions, you're able to control those emotions and truly have God in the forefront of your mind. Have Jesus Christ on the forefront of your mind with every decision and with every thought. That is the next level. And that's probably a level that I'm really not at yet when it comes to faith. And if I can get to that level, I'll truly become really unstoppable in every other aspect of my life. But I'm still working on that. Similarly to that, in every other aspect of life, you will have one level which is good, but maybe you have ambitions to go higher. then there's new time under tension. There are new inputs. There are new things you got to deal with. So that's the concept of time under tension. Really, to sum it up and to put it in a little summary, wrap it up, you have that, you're callousing your mind, right? You have that callousing of the mind. You're getting used to something. You're getting into the routine. You're getting into the habit of it. Of course, if you've read Atomic Habits by James Clear, you've watched all types of habit building content. Once you build the habit, it becomes a little bit easier. But it starts with the tension, with the difficulty, with the friction to actually go and build that skill. But if you want to keep the skill, you got to still be in the environment where the skill can be built and nurtured. So I use the example of sales skills. I use the example of like playing a musical instrument, or even being in the gym. The best way to analyze it is it's like a muscle. Any skill that you're building in your life, it's like a muscle. Where over time, it'll take tension, it'll take a little bit of difficulty to build that skill, to get through those initial challenges. But then you will get that skill, and then you will eventually be able to say to yourself that you're competent at that thing. But if you spend time away from it, you will lose a level of that competence, and you will have to build it up again, similarly to how you will have to build your muscles up again if you spend time away from training them in the gym. So that's time under tension, and there are levels to time under tension. You might get to a level of skill, sales, communication, leadership, whatever you're trying to go and do, that you are competent compared to the average person. You actually know what you're doing, but you want to get to another level. So then you have to go through a new time under tension, a new phase of building that level of skill, where then now that level is the standard. And even if you drop to the previous level, you will lose the skills and the competency at that higher level, and you will be still at the lower level. So if you want to be at that level, higher level, you got to be in the environments consistently and do the thing consistently that will keep you at that higher level of skill and of time under tension. And then the reverse is time away from tension. When you have bad behaviors and addictions and things that you don't like from yourself in your life, time away from those types of feelings and those types of desires will wean you off of those addictions. And it'll be harder, it'll be more difficult, but if you can do it, and if you can be consistent with it, you can truly overcome those patterns and those difficulties. And the main point, overarching point out of it all, is consistency is the most important. One day on, one day off, it might not actually build those skills, even if you're in those environments. Consistency, actually doing it as a daily thing preferably, is the most important for building any skill that you want to have in your life. That's it. That's the summary of this concept, this episode, this idea of time under tension. You can relate it back to the gym. Many people, and I see it in myself at times, many people are actually pretty good at going to the gym and doing that progressive overload and going through it. And sometimes you need to build skills even more, because in the gym, your muscles, you eventually get to the point where you lift a weight and it's not hard anymore. You can do 12 reps of the weight and it's not difficult. You can do 15 reps and it's not difficult. So then progressive overload is the principle, where you then increase that weight and you increase the tension. So when you're building that skill, similar to kind of what I was talking about with the whole like finding a new level of skill, sometimes you actually probably should find a new level of skill. You're kind of outgrown that level that you're at, and you actually have to. So it's not a ambition thing at times. It's you actually just have to. If you want to keep growing, you want to keep building those skills, you actually have to at times. So that's the whole idea. And at times I'm not consistent with it, me personally. That's why I'm talking about it, because it's an important thing and it's an important concept. It's a very deep thing where it's like the consistency of it and of doing the thing, whatever the thing is for you, is the most important thing. On and off, if you're on and off with anything, you're not going to do it. And yes, like I find that sometimes I'm very good at going to the gym and working out and being consistent and growing my muscle mass and all that stuff. But then when it's transferred to other aspects of life, like actually putting different work in, or if it's sales skills, sometimes I find that it's a harder transition. So it's a means to an end, but it's not the end itself. The whole comparison to the gym. You can absolutely compare your physical muscles to your brain and to the skills you develop in your brain, but it's not the be all end all. It's not the absolute perfect comparison, because at the end of the day, they are different things and different pathways that you need to go and develop. So keep all of those things in your mind. Keep all of those things close to you when you are thinking about developing a skill, when you're thinking about making change in your life and improving in some aspect in your life, because these are good concepts, and I think this is good stuff that I'm talking about today. just good stuff to have in your mind when it comes to how to develop a skill and how to actually improve in your life. Time under tension. Remember that as a principle, and remember what you're actually going to have to do to get to a level of skill and a level of competency with anything. And remember that you have to keep that consistency going. You got to keep putting yourself in those environments. Don't leave those environments, otherwise you will lose a lot of that skill in your mind. So callous that mind, keep it consistent, and continue to grow every single day in your life. And even if you're watching this podcast and if you've made it this far in the podcast, I truly do appreciate you for being here. But remember that watching stuff and consuming stuff, it only gets you so far. Doing the thing will be what gets you to the real level of skill and competency. Going through that actual real difficulty and friction in your life will get you to actually be good at something. And that's up to you to make that decision every day that you are going to go and pursue that thing. So watching it versus doing it, completely different experiences. But hopefully these words of encouragement and this concept can be something that you think about in your life, that you can actually use it as a way to build skills, to move forward and actually improve in whatever thing you want to improve at in your life, whether it is whether it's a sports thing, an athletic thing, gym thing, just some basic habit, like an easy habit, or like something bigger, like a sales skill, communication skills, leadership skills, or if you're trying to play an instrument, if you're trying to learn one of the arts, or if you're trying to be consistent in school and in studying, or you're just doing work and you're just trying to make money somehow, whatever the pathway is, remember, time under tension to build the skills, and consistency, being in that environment, doing that thing consistently, will help you to build that skill even more in your life. That is the episode for today about time under tension and, of course, time away from tension when it comes to bad behaviors. That's all I got to say for today. Again, I appreciate you for being here. If you are watching this episode, if you enjoyed it and if you learned something today that you might actually take with you in your life, that is actually going to help you in your life in some way, I hope that was the case. If I did do that, and if I did kind of speak to you in some way, that's good. And I really do hope that I really do find joy at that. I really do hope that was the case. But if I did, yes, truly, I ask that you leave your support on this show, on this episode in any way that you can, by leaving a like, by subscribing to the show on YouTube, by following the show on Spotify, and leaving a comment, letting me know what you thought. Sharing the video to your friends, watching some of the other good videos that I've made on this show already as well, which I will leave in the cards, I will leave in the description of the video as well, as I do every single day in this episode of the 365 podcast. So yes, if you enjoyed it, I ask that you do show your support on this video in any way that you possibly can. But just being here in general, I appreciate you for being here. So thank you for watching this episode of the 365 podcast. That is all I got to say for today. Continue to glorify God every day throughout your life. And as always, I will see you tomorrow for the next episode.